Thank you for joining us today for our SME webinar, Diversify Your Workforce Through Apprenticeships. My name is Julie Foster and I work for the Department for Education in the Skills Directorate. Okay, I think we're ready to start. So I would now like to introduce you to today's presenter. Today we are delighted to have Simon Reichwald from Connector, and Simon is also the ex-Deputy Chair of the Apprenticeship Diversity Network. Simon has a wealth of experience and today is going to talk about recruitment and how to diversify your workforce. So I'm now going to hand over to Simon to get us started. Thanks, Simon.
Julie, thank you very much, and happy Thursday, everybody. Thank you for making the time for this webinar today. Yes, as you heard, my name is Simon. I work for an organisation called Connector, and we're all about supporting organisations bring diverse talent into their organisation, and importantly, progress that diverse talent in their organisation so that they stay. Some of what I share today is going to come from that experience, but I'm also, as Julie alluded to, involved in a number of organisations in the apprenticeship world. So, as you heard, I was the ex-chair of the Apprentice Diversity Champions Network. I'm the ex-chair, not because I was kicked out, because my term came to an end. And I'm also a fellow for the Institute of Student Employers, which represents the biggest recruiters of graduates and apprentices in the UK. So I'll be sharing knowledge from across those different organisations that I'm involved in to hopefully give you a really good breadth of insight. You can see the agenda in front of you, so I'm not going to read through it. It's clear what I'm going to cover off today. A couple of things I would like to say before we get started into the meat of this content I'm going to share today. I'm going to share a lot. I'm going to move through quite quickly. I'm not going to cover everything that I say on all the slides because I'm very conscious that you can I want to provide you with a kind of tick list of stuff to think about and consider going forward. So, and this content is obviously available after this event. So I am conscious there's a lot here on some of the slides. And also this isn't an exhaustive list, but hopefully what it'll do is give you both food for thought, but also importantly, useful things for you to consider and practical actions that you can take. I'm a big fan of enabling organisations to go away with things and go, I can do that today. You know, on the back of what I've just heard, that's something I can start to take immediate action on. So that's the approach I'm going to take to today's webinar. So let's get started. Next slide, please, Julie. So I just want to start by talking about how much apprenticeships have changed. And the probably the most profound way I can share with you how much of apprenticeships have changed, and they're no longer this kind of old idea of kind of blue collar, low level, qualifications that can be taken. There is now not a career you cannot get access to get to the top of through an apprenticeship route. And the ways that really surprise people, you can now become a lawyer through the apprenticeship route, and they've just launched one for medicine, so you can become a doctor through this route. So there isn't a career that you cannot progress through an apprenticeship. So it really it is right up to the highest level, and you can get everything from a level 2 to a level 7 apprenticeship. Level 7 being postgraduate, level 5 and 6 being undergraduate. So it really is a hugely credible and powerful route for individuals to progress. Apprenticeships are for everybody, not just for young people. So for all ages and all careers, you can undertake apprenticeships. And again, it's not just for new starters coming into an organisation, also enrolling existing employees onto apprenticeships is something that lots and lots of firms are getting real success with. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a moment. And if you think about firms that have historically always kind of recruited graduates, the volumes of apprentices that these firms are now hiring is really significant. And there are some really big organisations out there as well as small organisations out there, who recruit in equal number, more apprentices than grads. Don't recruit grads anymore. It's all about apprentices. So it really has, the landscape has changed dramatically since 2017 and the advent of the apprenticeship levy. So it's important that you see apprenticeships as a really wide and inclusive tool for you to progress and develop talent at all levels and in all parts of your organization. Next slide, Julie. So one of the things that's really important when it comes to hiring apprentices, you need a really clear why. Why are you doing this? What is the reason that you want to either hire apprenticeships in your organizations or obviously enroll existing employees onto apprenticeships? And I'm just going to touch on some of the key reasons why we see firms who are using apprenticeships much more heavily, why they are doing this. And one of them you won't be surprised to hear is skills. They need to build the skills that are relevant for their organization and relevant for the needs of their organization, not just today, for the future. And we're seeing a real trend for firms wanting to build their own talent. So you've got this approach that some of you will be familiar with, which is buy, build, or borrow. Do I buy the skills? So in other words, do I hire expensive people in who've got the skills? Do I borrow? So do we bring kind of people in on a short-term basis with those skills, again, typically expensive, or do we build? And the trend we're seeing in organizations at the moment is very much that build, this recognition that we need to build these skills. These skills that we need aren't going to go away. They're not short-term, and we need to do that. And if we just go out into the market and simply hire people with the skills already, particularly in those areas where skills are short, you're paying really high salaries for these individuals. I'm not saying you don't need people like that, but we're seeing a much greater balance in organizations of bringing that breadth of building the skills within the organization. So that's a big driver. The other great reason for why to hire apprenticeships is that apprenticeship standards, so these are the qualifications that apprentices now go to, have been designed by employers. They're called trailblazer groups. So these are the skills, the behaviors, the knowledge that is delivered through any apprenticeship standard has been designed by employers in the same sector. So it really is super, super relevant, and that can still be quite a criticism of degree courses, for example, with graduates, is are they still as relevant to the needs of what employers want? So that's another reason why we're seeing employers do it. The other one is apprentices stay longer. The evidence is really clear, and they stay longer, and you can see some stats there to back it up. And also, when you talk to employers, the attitude when you're bringing apprentices in is that they know they're there to learn. They're not arriving thinking they know everything or this is how I've always done it. They know they're there to learn, and that's a really important mindset when you're hiring people into your organization. And they reward that knowledge and that skill, that building of skills for them as apprentices. They reward that with loyalty, and they stay longer. So that's another big driver why we're seeing firms hire more apprentices. And then you've got the productivity benefits, and there's lots of really good evidence, and you can see some examples of it now. You know, productivity is a really important focus, not just for your firm, but for UK PLC. We need to be more productive, and apprenticeships are a way to drive that. And the other one is, you know, if you're talking about hiring young people or people from, you know, underrepresented backgrounds in your local community and giving them opportunities, you know, and we know for firms that's something that they want to do. They want to play a positive role in the communities in which they operate, and apprenticeships enable them to do that. So lots of really, really clear reasons. And I would urge all of you, if you're thinking about doing this or growing your apprenticeship activity, is to have really clear whys that you are looking to do it, because then you can also measure impact because you've got really clear why are we doing this. Next slide, Julie, please. There are also financial benefits. I'm not going to go through these in huge detail of hiring apprenticeships, but there are all kinds of grants that are available, you know, and money that you can get when you hire them. You know, you don't make NI contributions for apprentices under the age of 25, as long as they're obviously below the basic rate of tax. So you can see there are lots of financial benefits. So on top of a really clear business reason about why you're doing it, you'll also benefit financially from making those the decisions to hire and bring people in on apprenticeship. So good financial benefits for doing it as well. So a real cherry on top for organisations when they do this. Next slide, Julie, please. So why diverse apprenticeship talent? So that's what I want to look at now. We've talked about why apprentices, but why is it important for them to be diverse? Well, firstly, what do I mean by diverse? When most people think about diversity, they often think about gender and they think about race and ethnicity. But I'm also talking about socioeconomic background. So in other words, people from a lower socioeconomic background, working class folk, who often don't get access to the same opportunities as more advantaged individuals. Neurodiversity, so people with different ways of thinking, people with learning difficulties and disabilities. From an age perspective, people have come out of the care system. These are all diverse talent pools. So why should you want to diversify your talent through apprenticeships by focusing on diverse talent pools? So there's two important ways to look at this. What's the business case for greater diversity and what's the moral case? The moral case is pretty clear and it's the right thing to do. There's this wonderful quote, which is talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. There's all this amazing talent in these other diverse talent pools, but often opportunities aren't put in front of them. And for these individuals, it really can be. I was chairing an apprentice conference recently and we had an apprentice on it, and she was talking about the fact that getting onto an apprenticeship has been her golden ticket to progress her career, and she would not have progressed her career without it. So that's a really powerful story to hear when you talk about the impact it has on individual people's lives. So the moral case is clear for greater diversity, but there's a really strong business case, and that's equally important. First is, if you proactively target diverse pools of talent, you widen your talent pool. They'll bring diversity of thought. A lot of firms are recognizing the importance that their employees need to represent their customers, need to look like what their customers are like, because that helps them shape the right solutions for their customers because they understand them. And only by having that diversity in the organization are you going to truly understand, the diverse needs of different and diverse customers that you have. And also this brings greater employee engagement. We know, and not just with young people who are particularly passionate about it, but all people, really, that kind of sense of fairness, and there's loads of great talent out there. So when firms are proactively taking action on this and bringing more diverse talent in, the evidence and research is clear. It drives up employee engagement, which means your existing employees stay longer, which is good for you, again, as an organization. Next slide, please, Julie. So I wanted to kind of just break this up by just sharing a bit of a really lovely case study that we came across through our work in the Apprentice Diversity Champions Network. So this is Manny, and Manny's a really good example of, had worked in a very traditional, actually Indian business, but then he decided I want to do something different. I've been doing this, forever, and I wanted to do something different. So he joined Co-op Funeral Care 5 years ago. And his progress has been unbelievable. He had no experience in the space before, never done it before. So he started with his level 2 apprenticeship. 5 years on, he's a funeral director and he's working towards his level 3 apprenticeship. So it really can be both life-changing for individuals like this, and you can see the lovely stuff that he said about this experience, but also for that organization. Within 5 years, they've built a funeral director. They've had to go out and buy one, expensive person to hire, not many of them, small talent pool. They've been able to develop an individual within their organization up to that level within 5 years, which is just fantastic. So he's a brilliant example of thousands and thousands of other fantastic examples of apprentices, and the difference it makes both in the life of the individual and for the life of the individual, not just the individual, for their family, but also for the organization, the impact it can have. So a really lovely story, and I love his smiley face as well. It's just brilliant. Next slide, please, Julie. So I'm now going to talk a little bit about how to attract and hire diverse apprentices. And the first thing I would say is, hiring great apprenticeship talent, it's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do, but I'm going to share with you how to go about doing it. There are 3 options. So one is do it yourself. So do it in-house. I'm going to give you some hints and tips to do that. You can outsource it. So there are specialist recruitment businesses out there who can help you with and enable you to do that quickly and in a time-effective manner. Some apprentice training providers provide a recruitment solution as well. Not all, but some of them do. And there are also apprenticeship hubs run by your local government, which can again provide support for you to do this. So there are a number of different options, and I'm going to provide you in a minute a checklist. It's quite an overwhelming list when you first see it, but as I mentioned, this is much more for you to take away and reflect on. I'm not going to have time to go through it all in detail, but I wanted to share those with you. So next slide, Julie, please. So as I promised, if you do it in-house, I put together a bit of a list of what you need to do, but I'm going to pick up on a couple of really important things. First is, if you're hiring apprenticeships, particularly for the first time or into different parts of your business where you've not hired them before, making sure you've got the right hiring manager is hugely important. They play an important role in the success you have when you bring apprentices in. So finding the right hiring managers to bring your apprentices into is really important. I'd also consider hiring more than one at a time. Because they can kind of learn from each other. They feel that kind of sense of we're in this together, and it gives you and them more opportunities to learn. When you advertise the role, put the copy in front of, if you're looking for diverse apprenticeship talent, road test the copy that you're coming up with if it's, for example, you're looking for a school and college leaver, for example, put it in front of them to see whether it's kind of hitting the mark and they understand what the opportunity is, and you've used language that people understand. You can use job boards, the government website, obviously your local job centre, to promote the opportunities. If you're looking for young people, don't assume if you can go into a school and college and they'll happily identify some really cool young people for you. What I always say about schools and colleges, they're not a job centre, they're an educational institution, and their job is to do that. You can engage with schools, absolutely, you can talk to them about apprentices, but don't see it as I'm going to get a glut of applications from them. You probably get some, but don't see it as you're going to get a glut. The other really big important thing when you're thinking about hiring apprentices, bearing in mind you're going to bring them into your organisation and you're going to give them the skills they need, is really think about what are you testing for and looking for when you put them through the recruitment process. And my very strong recommendation is that you really focus on attitude and a desire to learn and work ethic, rather than what experience have they have they got lots of skills, because partly what an apprenticeship is there to do is to build the right skills that you need. So I'd be really looking for attitude, desire to learn, and work ethic. These are important things you want. And then when it comes to actually things like the interview process and interview questions, make sure they're appropriate for the kinds of candidates that you're targeting. So, they've got a good chance of being able to answer them. And you might even want to share kind of likely questions that they might be asked so that they can prepare. Be what I call positively honest when you promote roles. No job is all glamour. There's bits that nobody massively loves doing but have to do. So be positively honest about the role, and really think about when you start to bring them into your organisation, helping them kind of prepare for landing in the organisation, what we call pre-boarding. Don't assume they're going to know lots of stuff. So really think about those fundamentals. That's when they come into it. What do they wear? What happens about lunch? Little things like that. And then think about buddies and mentors for them when they come into the organisation. People who can support them. Buddies tend to be more peer-to-peer. So someone like them, another, if it's a young person you're hiring, or if it's, someone a bit older, think about finding someone who's got a similar kind of lived experience to them, who can kind of be there for those embarrassing questions they don't want to ask their manager, but are still important and they need to know the answers to. And also think about a mentor for them, think about that progression piece, and then have these regular check-ins, because what we want to make sure is when you're hiring diverse apprenticeships and apprentices into your organisation, they get up to speed quickly, they start adding value, and they stay. So really thinking about beyond just hiring them is an important thing to do. Next slide, please, Julie. What about if you outsource it? So if you use other organizations. So one of the things we do at Connector is we're an outsourced organization. So I've thought about knowing what I know, what would I ask me if I was grilling my organisation about the service? And here's some questions that you might want to think about. Again, I'm not going to go into them in detail, but I think really understand how well they know the apprenticeship space and what's their experience in the apprenticeship space. Again, as I mentioned, lots of people think it's easy, whether it's doing it in-house or an outsourced organisation, but it is different. So really understand that, and also really find out what work they'll do to make sure when people enroll on apprenticeships, they know what's involved. They're doing a job and they're studying at the same time. So really ask those questions if you're going to use an outsource provider. And again, be really clear about what support and advice they can provide to the candidates, both through the process and what advice they can provide to you around once the candidates have accepted the role. So these would be some kind of key questions, and do challenge, and this is a real personal hobby horse of mine, do challenge this kind of must-have maths and English and GCSE. Is it a requirement for that job? It may be, but is it really? Because it can act as a barrier, and it can shorten the pool of talent you can potentially access. And of course, they can always do that qualification through their training provider, and it's funded. So, often you can find really, really great people, and they might have their maths but not their English, or English but not their maths. Is it a must? Because my experience is it's not always a must. Next slide, Julie, please. The other thing to think about, as I mentioned, is both setting up, when you're bringing apprentices in, set your business up and set the apprentice up for success. And I had a really great quote at a conference I was running recently, so it's not my quote, which is, it takes a village to build apprenticeships. Don't just rely on the individual apprentice and their line manager to make it work. Surround them with other people who can help. So past apprentices in your organization or other people like them, a mentor within the organization, your training provider, who's the one who delivers the apprenticeship standard. There are external networks you can join. The Apprentice Ambassador Network is brilliant. The Apprentice Diversity Champions Network is brilliant. So there are networks that you can become a part of that will help surround you, your organization, and the apprentices with the support they need to be a success. And the other thing to be thinking about is that progression and retention. You may bring them on at a level 3 apprenticeship. What you think about enrolling them onto a level 4 apprenticeship potentially, but it's that progression piece, because we know that helps them to stay. And also thinking about, if you bring them on a fixed term contract, an FTC, at what point do you bring them on, move them onto a perm contract, because we know that locks people in more when they're on a permanent contract. So all things to think about when it comes to setting your business up for success. Next slide, please. So in summary, apprenticeships are not a quick fix to your skills problem, and they're not a cheap fix. Don't think them as just cheap labour. What apprenticeships are is a fix to a systemic issue that this country faces, organisations face, when it comes to lack of talent and the right skills. Apprenticeships are a solution to that, and to succeed, have a really clear why. See the apprenticeships through their eyes. There will be bumps in the road when you do that. It's normal. Don't worry about it. These things happen. That's why this village is important, to help you navigate those bumps. Build a network both for you as an organisation and for your apprentices. And build your own Manny stories. That wonderful case study I shared a few moments ago. They're again great internally to use, great externally to use when you're looking to hire, and so do that. So just before I wrap up, if I was in your shoes, what I'd be thinking about now is what parts of your business have you got challenges when it comes to people with the right skills? And then look to start hiring apprentices and diverse apprentices for those parts of the business, who will stay in those parts of the business and help you to build the skills and the capability your business needs, not just today, but for future, to help your organization grow and thrive going forward. A whistle-stop tour. I hope that was useful. There's a whole lot of really great links here, and again, you'll get access to all this afterwards about some of the things that I've talked about. So there's lots more, but hopefully this has, as I said, given you food for thought and some specific actions that you can take in your organisation. So that wraps it up from me. I'm going to hand back to Julie. Thank you all very much for listening.
Oh, thank you, Simon. That was brilliant. And just for covering so much detail about recruitment practices, why apprentices are so important to the business, and also understanding the diverse talent pools. Always good to see real case studies, and I love the Manny case study, and also to see how we can grow programmes and provide further opportunities. So from me, I would just like to say a massive thank you, Simon, for today. We're now going to open up our Q&A session. We probably have about 2 to 3 minutes to go through any questions. So I'm going to hand over to Paul, if you're happy to start, to see if we do have any questions first of all.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Paul Russell. I work on apprenticeships in the Department for Education. I don't think we've really had any questions as far as I can see. I'm just checking now.
We've just got someone asking for the links, Paul. Just asking for links for the AAN and ADCN, so we can direct people to those, can't we, Julie? And we can put that in the support information afterwards.
Yeah, they're all in this deck. They were in a couple of the preceding slides. We embedded links into those. So yeah, so they're all there. So yeah, fantastic. People want to engage with them. They're both brilliant organisations.
I think we've got Gareth. Have you got your hand up?
Yeah, I'll ask a question. Thanks, Simon. That was really useful. You touched on mentoring and the importance of mentoring in supporting apprentices. I guess my question is there any particular profile of what you think a mentor should look like? For businesses who are trying to identify who their mentors might be, what is like a good candidate of someone who could take on that mentoring role?
It's a really good question, Gareth. Thank you. Yeah. So what makes a good mentor? How can firms identify good mentors? I think the first thing to say is mentors need to be volunteers. They need to want to do it, right? So you don't want to press gang someone into being a mentor, because it is about giving their time. So I think volunteering, getting people to volunteer to want to do it is important. The other thing I think is important is recognizing that you can have mentors for different things. It's not necessarily about having one mentor, because different mentors will have different experiences, different skills that they might be able to share. So I think that's another. Don't necessarily look for a mentor who's the fountain of all knowledge and knows everything. They're pretty rare and bluntly pretty tight on time. So think about having different mentors for different things. And again, I'd go back to that thing I mentioned a bit earlier. Well, it was on one of the slides about begin with the end in mind. What do you want? What do you want from that mentoring relationship as an organisation? I talk a lot about mentoring with purpose. What's the purpose of the mentoring relationship? Is it about career progression? Is it about developing skills? What is it about? Because that can help you think about who to target and who to approach to become a mentor within the organisation. And I think the other thing that's important with mentoring relationships is for individuals to be clear about what each party wants. So it's important for the mentee to say, this is what I'm looking to get from it, and the mentor to be able to go, yeah, I can help you with that. So there's that kind of agreement between the two that they can help each other. The research is really clear. Where the mentee chooses their mentor, the outcomes can be better. So again, by thinking about as a business, what do I want? What's the purpose of having mentoring? What do I want to be doing through the mentoring? That'll help you identify who. Then be really clear when you're communicating mentor opportunities to your employees that this is what we've got mentoring for. So if you're wanting help in these specific areas, career progression, specific skills, then absolutely we've got mentors for you to help them mentee find the right mentor for them, and potentially mentors for them for different specific needs that they've got.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon. Are there any other questions, Paul? No.
I see there's one on how to best interview neurodiverse candidates. I don't have specific knowledge available right now on that, but we can see if we can find something amongst our guidance. Unless, Simon, you've got something to add on.
It's a really important question, and it's a really I haven't got time to answer it. I think one of the most important things you need to do with neurodiverse candidates is share with them questions that they're going to get in advance. And I know you might say, oh yeah, but it just really helps for them to be able to do that. So that would be one tip right off the bat. But actually, it's an important topic. It's quite a long one. So we'll dig out some information that we can share with you on doing that. But helping them know what's coming at them, who they're going to meet, the environment they're going to meet them in, kinds of questions they're going to be asked are really important things to do with neurodiverse candidates.
Thanks for that. So I think obviously with time at the moment, I think we'll wrap up the Q&A session now, and we will respond and send some questions and answers out to people. But I just finally want to say, thanks again for everyone for joining us today. I've just got a couple more slides I want to run through. First one is, can I remind you that today's webinar was the 5th in our series. You can see from the schedule we've got a couple more running right through till June. The topics that are topics and the dates. Also, just to conclude, following the webinar, we will be sending out a short survey to everyone, and we really appreciate if you can complete it, as it does shape and define what we do in the future. Also, there's a poll just going in as well. If you could very kindly respond to that, that would be useful. And one of our final slides is, if you want to go back and listen to any of the webinars, this webinar or any of the other ones that we've got, you can access them through our DFE Sector Comms YouTube channel. This webinar should be available next week, and you'll find it in our Apprenticeship Employer webinar list. On the channel, you'll also find our Employer's Guide to Apprenticeships playlist, offering you a selection of short videos to help you on your apprenticeship journey, as well as a number of playlists about the apprenticeship service. Please go and subscribe if you can. And if all you have to do is just search for DFE Sector Comms in YouTube and then click on subscribe. We will also, over the next week, as we said, we'll be sending out the slides and the recording, the Q&A, and obviously the survey as well. But I'd just like to thank everyone for taking part today. I hope you found it useful. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.